welcome back to another Marnie and Michael Monday. We're back from our summer hiatus, and it is more than appropriate to start up again on a topic all around school since we're back with a new school year. Yeah. This was a heavily requested video. Michael has a lot to say on the subject, so I'm going to pretty much turn this video over to him. Let's talk all about college and how to pick one.
All right, well, I'm not an expert, but at least relative to our kids, and in particular our older son who just went off to college. I know it's been tough not having them around, but it's kind of a necessary evil to get them up and out and independent.
It's the goal. I wanted to preface by saying that every family does this a little differently. I think it's kind of obvious that the Goldberg family is Michael and I are very involved with our children, and this was ultimately Jake's decision, but this was very much a parent-guided, to some degree, decision.
So as it relates to our older son, Jake, and I'm sure we're probably going to apply a certain amount of this analysis when we visit with Shane about this in a couple of years. We kind of looked at, I guess at the end of the day, Marnie and I looked at it just recently in preparation for this video. We kind of looked at 5 factors that we weighed with Jake, kind of in consultation with Jake. At least in America, and I know your audience is far and wide, but in America, when kids are on the cusp of graduating from high school, the college process in general, at least as a starting point, boils down to how you've done academically in high school, which is your grade point average, and how you're doing on your entrance exams that you take, whether it's the SAT, the ACT, or both. And so the first thing that we did with Jake is we looked at what are the realistic options of the colleges that are out there, the hundreds of colleges that are in America. And we have a couple of books.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But we kind of captured, and I know it's a pretty big population, but we looked at the realistic options based on his grades and based on his test scores. And, the kids obviously are involved in a number of other things, volunteering and playing sports and things like that. But when it comes down to it, largely in America these days, your GPA and test scores are going to define your population of potential options. And so we did that with Jake. And we came up with a large population. Yeah. The second factor that we looked at is we did visit with Jake, and we wanted to gauge from him what his geographic desires are. And Marnie could probably attest to it stronger than Jake can. But he was focused on some element of geography.
He had a strong feeling on this one. He did not want to see snow.
Right.
On a regular basis. Like once or twice a year he was okay with, but did not want to have to deal with extreme colds.
He was pretty south, and Arizona was about as far west as he was going to want to look.
Yes.
So with that in mind, we had that population of potentials. That shrunk it down to kind of the southern half of the United States.
He also did not care for Florida so much either. Right.
And then the other factor, the third factor for us, is costs, obviously. And we can touch on this later on, but costs, it's kind of a moving target, number one, because the advertised costs, especially for out-of-state schools and private schools, are not at all necessarily what you're going to pay. For in-state schools that are public, those costs are pretty true. At least Marnie and I came to learn, and it may be different for people that live in different states, but at least for people that live in Texas, unless you're talking about a very elite student, largely the advertised in-state costs, tuition, housing, room and board, are going to be what you're going to pay.
You pay sticker price.
You kind of pay sticker price, even for great students with great scores. And I'll talk a little bit more about the value of an undergraduate education and how you want to go about analyzing that from a cost perspective for most kids. The fourth factor that we looked at with Jake is we tried to gauge from him, based on his personality, what kind of social life and kind of lifestyle options were going to be good for him. Whether that's a Greek system, whether
he definitely wanted a Greek system,
a large kind of sporting athletic department to go to games and enjoy tailgating, and
clearly where he ended up,
big city, small city, kind of college town versus not a college town, commuter versus residential. Those are all factors we considered with Jake.
So just to get back to Jake's personal choices, he very much did not want an urban setting.
No, he did not want an urban setting
at all. He didn't want a massively huge school, but ultimately he really did not want a very small college campus either. He wanted a school that had a lot of school spirit.
Right.
He came from a high school that had a huge amount of school spirit.
Yes.
and that's something he wanted to be involved with as well.
Right.
A Greek system, those sorts of things.
With the idea of doing Greek, and want to have that option.
So those were factors.
And I think he also, at the end of the day, really liked the idea of having a very much a quintessential college town, a town that really rallies around the school, and where all the residents kind of identify themselves as being connected to the school. And that's kind of a unique type of setting. You got to find that kind of a college town.
That's what he wanted. It's not for everybody.
Right.
That's what he wanted.
The final factor, the fifth factor, to the extent that you're following with our factors, is what I kind of categorized as alumni base. Jake, I think, understood, and we encouraged him to understand that your undergraduate experience should be able to cast a further shadow than just the 4 years you're attending, and what kind of an alumni base, what's the brand equity of the school that you're attending.
And this is where parent guidance comes in, because the 17 or 8, when they're going through this process, they're 17 years old usually.
Yes.
They're not going to have that far-reaching sight to think about how this is going to affect them at 30 years old, 40 years old. So this is
and I'll also tell you, somebody who's got an advanced degree, whether it's an MBA, for me, I have a law degree. The brand equity of an undergraduate education, a bachelor's degree, is a little bit of a different analysis than the brand equity of maybe a law degree or an MBA degree. So the brand equity of an undergraduate education and all that goes with it was important, and I kind of helped, I think, Jake kind of go through the analysis so that he understood that this was his undergraduate experience, and that he's got aspirations, obviously, to go to grad school, as Marnie may have intimated in other videos, or
Let's just get
not.
Through like the first
right now
semester.
he's on undergrad, but he's got a big plan.
But back to the alumni base.
Yeah.
It's important. We thought it was important for him long term that whatever school he ended up attending had a strong alumni base. So when he was looking for jobs, not just right out of school, but as he moved through life, that there would be connections wherever he went.
Exactly. That's right. Especially in his geographic region that he's got a particular affinity towards.
Which appears to be the South.
So those are our 5 factors right there. So maybe you want to recap just to...
Well, I want to help. I want to share a couple of resources that really helped us.
Sure.
A little old school, but actual real books made out of paper. There were 2 that were recommended to us, and these were like the Bible to us.
We even went on Marnie and Michael dates, right?
To
Barnes
gosh,
and Noble.
I can't tell you how many times we sat
Marnie and I went to Barnes and Noble
lugged these with us and poured over them. The first one is so big, I don't even know if it can fit in the screen. It's the Fisk Guide to Colleges. This is the 2015 edition, because that's when we started.
Yeah.
But they come out with a new one every year. I will link the current edition that you can order. And this one, I'm going to just put it down. The Fisk edition is a little more, it gets into the nitty gritty, less statistical analysis, more like what students have to say, more of the emotional side of not every college in America, but almost every college. And I don't even know if it's just America. It might also fall into, I think Canadian colleges are in there too.
I saw McGill on there. I know it does, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of pushing a little for Canada, but the snow thing ruled that one out. And that McGill is
McGill's interesting.
Yeah,
from
but
our perspective,
we looked at McGill, like we physically were there, but no. Yeah. And then the other one, which is, it only has 378 colleges. And this is this is the Princeton Review version, I believe. Yes, the Princeton Review. This is an older one even. This is how long ago we started looking, the 2014 edition. And this is very much just the factual, just the facts, ma'am.
A
little bit of an overview, but very much like, okay, this is your test score. GPA. So on the SAT, do you have what it takes to get in here? I think something that's really important to talk about is that we are talking about not having to pay sticker price.
Okay, let's talk about cost,
What we learned completely by accident, and a huge tip, I cannot stress how important this is so many people said to us, oh my gosh, how could you even think about sending your kid out of state? How can you afford that out-of-state tuition? Because it's ridiculous. Out-of-state tuition is insane. You might as well send your child to private school. But what we didn't know is that most, I don't know if all, I didn't look at all 50 states.
A lot of the southern schools, a lot of the southern,
large
public universities.
Many public state universities offer automatic merit-based scholarships
Right,
based
that
on
range.
the students' GPA and test scores.
Correct.
There's a sliding scale, but as long
Right.
as they have a minimum GPA
Right.
and a minimum ACT or SAT score,
Yeah,
they
it kinda
start
goes
just
up
giving you
incrementally,
money.
Yeah, really, without getting into the specifics financially, because that's going to be unique to everybody.
Yeah, but
the reality is every state school that Jake got into outside of Texas
yeah,
offered him some money, and that was not something that Marnie and I knew, having grown up in a different
no.
era, basically.
That didn't-
But
no.
out-of-state schools are trying to attract a diverse, geographically diverse student body. Or at least it seems to us that that's the case.
Yeah.
Because they're throwing money at these kids to lure them from other states to create that diversity. And so, so the cost issue, as Marnie
Well, I wanna
indicated,
tell
it's
them where
always
to
a
find it.
factor. When you budget, you got to have costs. But don't discard out-of-state schools because you're under the mistaken impression that they're going to be far more expensive than the state schools.
But to find more information about that,
Yes.
Go to the individual university's website and go to their financial aid page. It's not
Right.
considered financial aid, but that information on scholarships is usually on their financial
Absolutely.
aid
It
page.
definitely is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all yours.
Well, that was it, really. I guess.
Well, you were going to talk about the value of an undergraduate degree.
Well, I hit on it a little bit earlier. I think it's hard to value an undergraduate education as being a final destination in America, except for a few majors. Hard science majors, engineering, those types of majors. You may want to try to get into the best type of program that may cost a little bit more than you would otherwise need to spend, because that might be your segue into your professional life where you're going to get your job, and that could be your career with just a bachelor's degree, and maybe you get a master's at some point downstream. But there are some majors of which, frankly, Marnie and I are not that familiar, but it's more in the hard sciences where, go into that really rigorous Texas A&M engineering program or Georgia Tech engineering program, MIT, Engineering Northwestern, something like that, where going to that undergraduate experience, even if it means having a tough time, maybe not maximizing a GPA, but you need to have that technical background from that school to get into your job. For everybody else, though, you want to get into business, you want to get into law, those are things, at least in America these days, where you need to go on and get your professional degree. It's just so important to understand how that works from an admissions perspective, and to not do anything at the undergraduate level that's going to unnecessarily be detrimental and be prohibitive in your ability to create options for grad school. So
and to burden you financially.
that's right, exactly. So the value of that undergraduate education, to me, is something that is worth considering, because I think there are people that probably at the end of the day look back and realize they probably overpaid significantly for that bachelor's degree, which is the undergraduate degree in America. Now, I know that Marnie and I kind of feel, and we've kind of reserved financially for the prospect that when it comes to law school or getting an MBA, which may be one or both of the things that Jake is going to be interested in doing, we know that that's kind of his final destination academically. That's
Maybe.
A different story. Presumably, he's going to either
Who knows?
Potentially, that could be the case. But given Jake's inclinations right now, which is not the hard sciences, not engineering,
No.
he may be able to get a business job out of school, but more than likely he's probably going to desire, or his employer may desire, that he goes back and gets some additional education under his belt, and we want to be able to provide him at that point with the best opportunity to go to the most selective places.
That's where it's worth it to put your monies for graduate school.
At least we feel it is.
We feel.
Yeah.
Now Shane, oh my gosh.
We're not sure what he's interested in yet.
Oh, yes,
although
we
he's
do.
pretty good at science, believe it or not. I don't know.
Shane wants to be a record producer right now.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So,
music producer.
He may have to go to a
Or
special
an
music
art-
school.
or a rapper.
Maybe that's a bachelor's degree. I don't know.
Shane is a whole different kettle of fish.
So, yeah, I know everybody's going to have their own opinions about things. And frankly, I went to a private law school, and, people can talk about private school education with their own personal, maybe family experiences. I would just say broad brush, high level, from an undergraduate perspective, and save and except for the hard sciences or an engineering background, it's hard for me at this juncture to rationalize the value of spending that at the bachelor's degree level. So think about that a little bit, I guess, when you're considering options.
If there's anything you want us to expand on specifically in one video, just one point, please let me know, or a blog post. Maybe we'll do a private video on the blog and you can hop over there and watch it.
Definitely.
Put that in the comments below. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that you love watching these Michael and Marnie videos. I personally love sharing some of this screen with that face, and I wish he would be up for doing more, but he's not. So
I like doing it in little bits and pieces.
you will see him occasionally, maybe once or twice a month. So put your video requests in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you on Mondays, and as always, I will see you in the next video. See you then. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, welcome to August Favorites. Can't say that this has been a favorite month of mine. I said goodbye to my oldest child, sent him off 618 miles away,